What's going on, everybody? You are witnessing history right now. Welcome to the first episode of Pass the Message. And this is my new show where I want to help people. I want to bring people the knowledge that they need, knowledge that you didn't even know that you need, and want you to build on that and share it with your communities. I'm Jeff J. If you've been with me on this podcast show journey for years, you know I am. And if not, I'm a host. I'm a video producer. I call myself a digital alchemist. At some point, I will explain that. But I want to give you, first off, a brief synopsis of what this show is about. This is going to be in the podcast description, but I figure since this is the first episode, I'll read it to you so that you can get an idea for what this is going to be. The world changed dramatically in 2020. Living in this new normal, everyone is looking for tips and tools to thrive. That was a tongue twist. I didn't even know I wrote it like that. Even more important, it is sharing the knowledge to help our people level up. We need to pass the message. Pass the Message is a career, culture, and lifestyle podcast hosted by me, who will connect you to the fascinating folks you either know well or will get to know for the first time. They'll talk about work, health, professional growth, and the transformative lessons they've learned along the way that you can apply in your day-to-day life. Pass the Message empowers our guests to drop jewels and encourages you to distribute these gems among your people. This is your front row seat at a real talk session with relevant life hacks. Each one, teach one, reach one. And that is the goal. It's something that I wanted to do, wanted to help people, wanted to just do something beneficial that you can have fun with too. So this is why I'm here. And speaking of history, my guest is the first guest I've ever had on the show because we just started. So I want to introduce you to Dr. Alicia. Dr. Alicia Hodge. Let me pull up your stuff so I can get it right. All right. Dr. Alicia Hodge is a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in the treatment of anxiety-related disorders. Her mission and work centers around assisting people to overcome limiting beliefs in order to reach their goals. She's also has a passion for advocacy and actively engages in opportunities to educate and reduce the stigma of mental illness. Dr. Hodge also launched the hashtag Slay Your Anxiety campaign on IG to share a message of conquering fear through humor and self-compassion. That's pretty dope. Miss Hodge, Dr. Alicia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great considering that I'm in the house on day 1190.
I know, it's like the Star Trek log from like Star Trek or whatever. It's like we have been marooned on Meridian 5 for 35 days. It's nuts right now. So, yeah. I mean, I'll ask you the question. The first question I'll ask you is the question I think we all ask everybody nowadays. How are you holding up in all of this?
That's been an interesting question for me because, right, in general, as you know, I'm a psychologist, so I have clients and I'm working with them. And usually my answer is very vague, like, I'm good, I'm okay. And this is one of the first times probably that I've been going through the exact same thing that they've been going through. So we've been kind of like, no, really, like, what's going on? I'm doing well enough. Like, I'm doing good enough. That's my motto is I just need to be doing good enough. I don't need to be excelling right now. I'm using all the tips that I give to other people on myself.
Right.
And it's been nice to slow down, to focus on family, to pay attention to things that I haven't had a chance to pay attention to. There's some upsides to it, I have to admit.
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen you in a little while. We did Hell of Opinions. And when I reached out to Dr. Alicia, she was like, yeah, because, I'm a mom now. And I was like, yo, has it been that long? Like, people make kids in that time? That's crazy.
I cooked and delivered a whole baby.
How's that been?
That has been great. I had just actually signed her up for daycare. And then I was like, oh, so you're not going?
Don't think that's happening.
I am enjoying this time because I wouldn't have had it with her. Like, I've gotten to see all of her milestones and that has been really nice. And, when maybe she might not go to daycare when it opens up, but she will be supervised by someone else when I'm allowed to.
I hear you. Listen, that has to be the scariest thing for a new parent, for a current parent, whoever, that, you want to put your kid in a spot with all these other kids where kids are nasty, first of all. And all the regular kid germs and then COVID on top of that, or the potential for COVID.
Yeah.
It's pretty spooky out there. So, I commend y'all. I know it must be an extra struggle. I'm not a parent, so I can't really speak to it, but I know it's an extra struggle. I've seen parents parent. I've been parented. So, you know what I'm saying? But I know it's pretty tough out there right now. So let's get into it. First of all, we're going to talk about your origin story. Tell us how you got to become a psychologist, like what brought you there and all of that.
I think the cliche answer is I've always wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is that I have always been interested in watching people. I'm nosy, right? I've always been interested.
I didn't want to say it, but I was about to say, I think all psychologists and therapists are inherently nosy, but nosy for a purpose, for a good purpose.
Curious.
I'm not nosy, I'm curious. I'm going to use that one.
Mm-hmm. I've always been interested in people and how they were reacting. And once I got to college, I definitely had kind of decided on psychology, but I was noticing we're all in similar situations, but we're all reacting differently. We all do things differently. Why? I just wanted answers. And so, of course, I majored in psychology. I went on to get a master's. And I really actually used to specialize initially in severe mental illness. So schizophrenia specifically. And I felt like it was a puzzle. I'm why is this happening? Of all the things that you could formulate or hallucinate about, why this? So I spent a lot of years doing that. And then being the perpetual professional student, I went back and got my doctorate. And when I finally got into the working world and opened up my own practice, I actually settled on anxiety because in some ways, it's just as delusional based at times. When we have intense fear, it can be very delusional, just as much as if I said that somebody from the moon was talking to me. You listen to your fears and you believe in them. So, I kind of settled on anxiety because I was like, this is equally challenging. It's very interesting. And the treatment works. So I've really enjoyed seeing people be like, wow, I know what you said was going to work, but it worked. And I'm like,
okay. Well, I tell you this much. I always love talking to doctors because I'll tell the same story that the only reason I would have became a doctor was just to be able to stunt, to have the title and to be called and to correct people with so much hubris and snooty, uptight bouginess. Yo, I'm Dr. Jeff. Actually, I have a PhD. Please address me as such.
It's funny because I definitely don't use it as much as I could. Sometimes I'm I should call and make reservations. This is doctor. I need to flex it a little more. Every now and then now I'm just yeah.
Well, it's kind of better for it to be a light flex, right? So that, for example, when people get pulled over and somebody sees who they are and they're like, oh my God, da, da, da. You're like, I saw, yo, do your job, whatever the case may be. But then you kind of looking at them, but you see my license, though, right? You see my license. But yeah, no, much love to y'all. Much love to all the doctors out there. And that's pretty cool to know that those inherent things within yourself pushed you into that field. And that's part of what we're talking about on this show is talking about the skills, talking about the commonalities that we have, where someone may say, what do I have in common with a psychologist? And this is what we're going to find out. And this is how we're going to dive into it. We're putting you on the seat for a change. So let's talk about, I wanted to, these are interesting times. These are unprecedented times, at least in our lifetimes and really in the time of the world, right? And our mental health has been paramount, especially in this era. It's been less stigmatized than before, and it's been paramount as of now. So this couldn't have happened at a better time for us because now that type of stuff isn't brushed to the side and we aren't forced to push through. So one of the things I wanted to ask you in terms of mental health and our psyches and our mind states as of now, what do you think is the biggest issue that you've seen people having, whether it's coping with this or just in general, a common theme that people have had dealing mentally with our situation?
So I would actually say I see two themes. One is just the feeling of uncertainty. it's like pervasive. And that I always let people know that uncertainty and anxiety like go hand in hand. Like when you cannot predict, when you don't have structure or know what's going to happen, it's like a sense of dread. So initially we were all like, okay, 2 weeks, like March 31st, got it. And then you're like, no. And now it's sort of just like the statements have become more vague, like whenever this is over or whenever outside opens up, like
Right.
that can spur a lot of feelings of like, I'm losing my ground. I'm very destabilized. I don't know if I have anything to look forward to.
Right.
And then the other thing I would say is really like grief and loss. And I don't mean just grief, meaning, I definitely want to acknowledge people have lost family members and friends, and that's significant, real grief. But then there's also grieving over like, I'm not going to the prom. I don't have a graduation. I missed my birthday. Like celebrations and traditions and things that people were looking forward to, they're not getting that.
Right. I think that talking about grief for a second, I think that's been understated because someone like me, I have a master's, I have a bachelor's also, so I've been through graduation. So I've lived through the moments where I've seen Chuck Schumer give the same speech 85 times when I'm going to different people's graduation, this graduation, and we know the structure, we know what it is. So for us, from a place of privilege, we've already experienced. I've went to the prom, I've had graduation. To think that it's not even postponed, you're just gonna go through it involuntarily because it's being taken away from you from an unprecedented moment. So that type of effect is something that could linger because it's like, yo, I can't even go outside. I can't be with my friends. I can't walk during graduation. Think about all the people who had to pay their way through college and struggled and may have failed out. Like so many different stories. So many different stories where it's like something being taken away from you that was out of your control. And that's something that a lot of people deal with in life in general when it comes to grief with from a loved one, like death, like coping with death. Death was something I feared death. If there was like a death phobia, I probably was like on the periphery of it, because like when I was a kid, it was like, yo, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. So that dealing with that grief, it's like do you see in terms of that, you said uncertainty and anxiety go hand in hand. Do you feel like there's a larger or a deeper sense of trying to control what we have now than there's been in normal times?
Yeah, I find that when we don't have a grasp on something, we try to clamp down in another area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I've even seen myself like rearranging stuff in the house. Like I could just control this and make this look nice. So I think that everyone's experiencing it in different ways, but we all have like a collective sense of like, when I'm talking to my friends, it's like, yeah, that would be nice. Like if we can go, if out again, like I said, like if outside is open, then yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Because now we're just uncertain. Like before it was like, oh yeah, June, of course. And now I'm like, maybe I'll see you, maybe, I don't know. Christmas. So yeah, it's definitely like a level of things are pushed out of your control. And so you might try to assert your control in other places, but you also might just get overwhelmed and feel like, I'm gonna melt down.
Yeah, it's funny. At the time of this recording, Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion Savage remix just dropped, and I'm laughing because I'm talking about it. Did you? Oh, you were in session all day. You didn't even know.
I saw it on my phone, and I was like,
oh yeah, no. After we're done, definitely go listen. It's a moment. Put it to you like this: I am a member of the Beehive. I'm a auxiliary member because some of y'all be y'allin' a lot, but it's a lot. But that was like the song that heightened my anxiety and my grief about not being able to be outside, because we need to be outside right now. Like this is the song. This is brunch, yo. This is the embodiment of brunch. Like this is summer days outside, like drinking drinks with your friends and keying and playing games and like it's just a moment. And I just feel like it's like I'm doing well. And then I get things that both uplift and depress me, because it's literally like I'm at the final level of a video game. I know how to beat the boss, and the minute I go there, the game freezes. And it's just, I have to wait for the game to unfreeze before I can do what I gotta do. That's how I feel about a lot of this, you know?
That's a good metaphor.
I try. So speaking of that, one of the biggest things I've seen is the effect of isolation on us, where cabin fever took on a whole nother meaning for me. You know, I'm fortunate enough to have a job where I can do my job 100% remotely. You know, salute to everybody. Best wishes to everybody who's been furloughed, who's been laid off, who are essential workers and have to go in every single day and face that. I have a sister who works in healthcare, and she has to go every day. A bunch of friends, a bunch of nurses, doctors, everybody. So shout out to them. But the feeling that I have sometimes is, I don't have a problem working from home. Some people have a problem working from home. I body working from home. But it's like, all I can do is home. I can't go outside. I can't, I go outside within reason, like around my block. I work out outside. I do a bunch of stuff like that. But it's like, when you want to venture past your limits, your house limits, you got to mask up. You got to put on gloves. You got to be worried about droplets in the air and touching people. And it's like I'll find myself, I don't even want to mimic it on the camera. I find myself touching my face. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get it. Like it's the isolation brings, for me, a different type of trepidation and a different type of concern. So from your perspective, from what you've been hearing and what you've been seeing, how has isolation affected everybody?
I think in the beginning, a lot of people were like, oh, yes, isolation, like downtime, I can relax.
Like a vacation.
Yeah, like, some days off. And I think at this point, the reality is like, as humans, we are built for connection. Mm-hmm. Everyone is on a spectrum. There's some people who want daily connection, like constantly socialize. And there's some people who are like, okay, I'll get out every now and then. But to be forced into isolation, I think is very difficult. It gives you a lot of room and space to think. And that's a big thing that I focus on, is just like, what are your thoughts? What are you telling yourself? Because we could spin a whole narrative of doom and gloom, just as well as we could spin a positive and pleasant narrative. More than likely, when you're feeling anxious and upset, you're going to have a more negative outlook and interpretation of a situation. So I've seen people just kind of like struggle with managing that, I'm going to put in quotes, downtime, enforced downtime. And I've seen people sort of struggle to say, how can I be productive during this time? And I think that's an important question, but really my emphasis has been, don't measure this time in productivity. If you have things that you can get done, do them. By all means, I'm not against that, but be very careful to not say like, this amount of time, I have to be so productive. I have to get everything done that I've never been able to get to, because if you fall short, A, you're going to be disappointed, and B, like biologically, we are in a heightened state. Like, it's a pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's serious. You should be a little bit afraid. There's a healthy level of fear. When our bodies are in fear mode and our brains, we're very disconnected from like being able to plan and be creative and be organized. Mm-hmm. So it's important to know, like, even if you're naturally an organized person and you're like, oh, I'm falling apart, I'm like forgetting stuff, that's kind of what I would expect. Like, you're in kind of a heightened state of like, I just need to survive mode. Even though we're in our houses and maybe we're like privileged to be a little bit comfortable, your brain is still sort of like, I'm on the lookout. Like, I don't have time to sit down and write songs or, write that book. That might not be you. And right. You have to feel bad about that.
Right. It's funny you spoke about people who treated this at first like a vacation, and then now it's like, oh, now we really can't go outside. I look at the psychology of government, right? Like, for example, we're in New York. Governor Cuomo is also a New York native. So he keeps giving us every like 30 and 15 day increments, because Cuomo knows, one, summer is coming, and two, if he tries to say anything past May 15th, like in a long block, that it may send everybody out. So it's funny to watch the psychology from the politicians' perspective on why they're continuing to inch close, because they want to give you, I feel, and you let me know what you think, they want to give you digestible blocks of time, because 2 weeks will feel a lot shorter than 2 months at a time.
I agree with you. I think, some of it is, of course, like updated knowledge, but I do agree. If they told us initially, like, oh, April 29th, I would have been like, oh, nah.
Mm-mm.
Like, I would have been stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So when, like you said, when you think about it in 2 weeks, you think about your work schedule, like, oh, I have 2 weeks of vacation. I know how to deal with that. I can stretch that. But, the other day someone was like, oh, it's quarantine, day, let's say 45. And I was just like, what? Because I myself was breaking it down into like week long, 2 week long increments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has been about like, shoot, yeah, it has been about 45 days or such. Because I know I like, from my work, I think I went into quarantine like the 15th or the 16th, whatever that Tuesday or Wednesday was, and then it's almost May. It's going to be May in a few days. It's nuts. It's ridiculous. What do you have? What are some suggestions that you have to quell the anxiety over isolation? Anything that people can do to like lower that anxiety and get a sense of normalcy in this current situation?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to honestly acknowledge that this is like very unprecedented. Like, this is not something you've more than likely been through before. This is something that you don't have the answers to. If you can kind of just like radically accept, like, I'm nervous, this is overwhelming, this is uncomfortable, that's the first acknowledgement of like your emotions. After that, I would say that there's maybe some small things you can do. Like, I've heard people say keep a routine, and I will admit I've even personally struggled with this. Because my day isn't broken up into outside versus inside. So things come up and change my schedule throughout the day. I have a small baby. Like, she has some sense of time, but she don't respect my time.
Baby don't respect time at all.
Yeah. So I say maybe have like benchmarks in your day or things that you're going to do. So maybe you don't have a bedtime, but you can at least shoot for, I want to try to get like 7 hours of sleep. Maybe one of those is a nap in the middle of the day if you're afforded that. But try to have benchmarks. Like, I want to try to wake up around this time. Don't go overboard. If you've never woken up at 7 a.m. before, don't try to do that now. Like, now is not the time to try to, I don't want to say reinvent yourself, but just be gentle. Like, you want to get up earlier, maybe that's 7:30 versus 7 o'clock.
Right.
Have things to look forward to. And that could just be one thing a week. I tell people, if they can, if it's safe, try to get outside a little bit, like fresh air, even if it's just like standing on your balcony or, the front of your building or your house. I've definitely been trying to take walks when I can. Try to be fairly healthy. That's just a stretch. I know the quarantine snacks, like, it's a thing.
Ooh.
Stress eating is a thing. Like, that's real. So I don't want to take that away from you. And then I would say, try to have one thing you look forward to. That could be a day for yourself. Like, I'm going to do this self-care thing. I'm going to watch my show, but have things to look forward to. Because I think if you're sort of having despair, like there's nothing, everything's canceled, I have nothing, you don't feel motivated. You feel really negative.
Right. Yeah, those are all great tips. One of the things that you said was about the routine, right? What I found was, for me, I have to switch my routines up to actually have some semblance of a differentiation of days. Yeah, otherwise, we're living in, depending on where you grew up, Groundhog Day or Edge of Tomorrow. It just keeps going and going and going. Like, Tuesday is my longest day. Tuesday's when I have therapy. So that's always like a day that's like its own day. But for example, I may work out in the morning on Mondays, in the afternoon on Wednesdays. I may switch up like meditation schedules. I may put something specifically unique on a certain day that I could have done already, but I just say, you know what, I'm gonna do it that day, just so that it, even if your life was mundane in terms of, I do this every single day and that's it. I think now more than ever, especially being in the house, you have to switch it up.
Yes, I agree with you. Also, I wanted to add to that, move around.
Hmm.
So if you exercise, definitely exercise, but move around because stress hormones in our body, the way they're dispersed is through movement.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's like take a couple laps around your living room, something, try to move around if you can. I
Mm-hmm.
really think that that's key.
Yeah, and I know people have probably heard this sentiment on a whole bunch of shows, a whole bunch of podcasts and whatnot. But I like when you said don't try to reinvent yourself out of nowhere. Now, by all means, I think if you're using the time constructively to change stuff about yourself, like this has been a big period of self-reflection for a lot of people, myself included, and the changes that you decide to make, I think you should implement them, but you shouldn't feel a pressure to. Like there was like an early sentiment in the quarantine that if you weren't starting a business brick by brick, that you were a complete failure to your ancestors and to whoever brought COVID to give you this opportunity on us. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, no. For some people, if they get out of this with extra rest, if they get out of this with their life, that's
Hmm.
an accomplishment. And I think that's where we don't need to be comparative. Now, if you want to start a business, I feel like, yo,
Yeah.
do your thing, but we should not feel compelled to excel in a certain area just because, like, we're not. I saw a quote that said something to the effect of, we're not we're not working from home, we're working through a crisis situation, something to that effect, where it's like, it's not like this isn't normal, this is abnormal, we're working through unprecedented times, so it's not like this is working like the traditional working from home perspective. So I think those were all some great tips and things that we should heed in our pursuit of trying to get through this in one piece. One thing I definitely wanted to talk to you about was I came across this Time article by Sophie Weiner where
Hmm.
they were talking about dreams, and I tell you, I thought I was the only one. You see it on social media, you see it everywhere. Everybody's been having crazy ass dreams. Like, and you know what's funny? I used to see everybody talking about it, and I was like, oh, that's y'all. I don't really be having crazy dreams. The minute I said it, I like the wildest, like what the hell? What kind of Netflix special am I dreaming? Like stuff like, yeah, it's just like insane type situations. So just to read some of the things that they said, thing I found interesting. A recent dream survey conducted by Deidre Leigh Barrett, an assistant professor of psychology at Harvard Medical School, seems to confirm that the incident of vivid dreams has increased as the virus has spread around the world. So this is like dreams, crazy dreams in the wake of Corona. This would not be unprecedented. Studies have shown that events like 9/11 changed the way people dream for a time, making their dreams more intense and memorable in the days after the attack. It seems feasible that the coronavirus pandemic, which has personally impacted almost everyone on Earth, could have a similar impact. Research has shown that increased anxiety during the day can lead to more negative content in dreams, something several people I spoke to about their COVID-19 related dreams reported. They described dreams about dead bodies, watching friends or themselves attacked or killed, and other terrifying surreal events that felt disturbingly real. Have What has been your experience with that in terms of whether it's yourself or your patients or anything that you've heard about this different dreamscape that we're going through?
So I definitely have had maybe less my clients that I can recall, but my friends have been sharing with me.
Mm,
So there actually are people who are dream analysts. Like I will say that there are psychologists who
mm-hmm.
are very well versed in dreams. I don't have like, a guy. So sometimes my friends call me like, I had this dream and I'm like, girl, I don't
Like,
know.
Alicia, tell me what this means.
Right. I mean, sometimes I can make guesses, but I think I agree with this study and I read the article as well. And I think it's true when we are more emotional, like I think it's the emotionality of what's going on. When we're more stressed, when we're more emotional, we have more dreams. And usually those dreams are upsetting or disturbing and they cause us to wake up, which is tied to remembering them. So in reality, we all dream fairly often. It's just whether or not we know or kind of can recall. But when you have a dream like someone, dead bodies and things like that, more than likely you're going to wake up and then you're like, yo, I just had this dream. It's tied to the fears you're having. It's tied to the news you're consuming. It's tied to like all of the intense emotions around this. So I myself have definitely not experienced COVID dreams, but like it kind of made me identify when I read the article, emotionality. When I was pregnant, like my emotions was up here. I was dreaming like movies, like long, detailed, vivid dreams. And I would just wake up like, what? Was that real? Like, what's going on? I definitely can understand and empathize with like the dreams that people are having right now.
Yeah, the one I remember, like there was a bunch, but it was like I got turned, like everybody were puppets and I was a puppet and I realized it and I'm like, yo, what the hell what the hell is going on? Another one, it was like, what happened?
So like we could talk about it after.
Right. It was like another one. I was like in a Bond type movie. Like it was nuts. And like I'll have regular dreams, but the funny things about my dreams are when I realize it's a dream, I eject. Like it'll like something crazy will happen, and I'll just pause, and I'm like, oh nah, wake up. I want out. So yeah, like it's. Yeah, this has had an effect on us like unlike no other, and just to see the different ways in which it's changing our behaviors and changing how we interact with one another, and just having to deal with those different types of things. I think it's almost like we always had those type of things to deal, but this is like putting it in our face and something that we can't escape.
Mm-hmm. You know? I agree with you. And that kind of ties into what you said before. Like it is a unique time for self-reflection, and it's a unique time that you can embrace if you have the bandwidth to do so. But if you don't, don't feel bad about it.
Right. So what have you seen in your profession in terms of like I spoke about it earlier about that I feel like therapy and psychology and mental health have been destigmatized, like at probably at the lowest point it's been in a while. What has been your experience with that?
I think it's actually led to people reaching out to me more, which I appreciate and I want to encourage. Like this, because it is a unique time of self-reflection. If you notice that you are not functioning the same as before, that's more than likely happening. But if you really feel like I'm not doing well, most of us, meaning therapists, are online right now doing telehealth. So it potentially removes some of the barriers before that. People were like, I don't have time, I don't have an opening. So the hope is that you can actually like schedule a telehealth appointment, get that in, seek out therapy. So I really would encourage people to look into therapy. There's tons of stuff online, like self-help articles. I don't trust all of it, I'll be honest. There are some good articles out there with tips and, reaching out. We can be socially distanced, but not disconnected. So that's what I've been talking about with people, like reaching out to family members and friends. I've been seeing like very creative things. I've been a part of like the Zoom happy hours, the Zoom birthday parties. Like those are ways that we can try to maintain a new normal and still stay connected despite all of the stuff that we're going through.
Right. And what are some resources that people can use in order to get some help with whether it's therapy or anything like that? What are some resources that people can check out?
So I definitely am a fan of like teletherapy, meaning like on the phone or face to face. I know that they have the texting apps. I don't want to disparage them, but that would be like lower on my list, to be honest, just because I've read some things around like if the therapists are qualified or not. So if you choose that, do your due diligence and make sure you have a licensed professional. That's always going to be my disclaimer. Mm-hmm. But there are directories out there. One that I'm a big fan of, my good friend and colleague, Dr. Joy, has therapyforblackgirls.com, which is a podcast and a directory of therapists. Although it's therapy for Black girls, they do see men as well. So you guys are not left out. I just read recently that Taraji Henson, her Boris Henderson Foundation, is offering reduced or free therapy for individuals. So that's like, there's a lot of resources. I think insurance companies right now are waiving sometimes co-pays and things like that. So I would definitely take advantage of the fact that the stigma is reduced. People want to seek help. So kind of look out on Therapy for Black Girls. I think in New York, my college mate of mine, Marielle, has culturaltherapy.com. I think that has a directory as well. So they're out there. Definitely just kind of explore.
Okay. And I'll get some of those resources from you, and I'll put it in the description. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or on the podcast, just read the descriptions, and you'll see all of that info that you can use, and you'll have an outlet.
I'm sorry, and also one of the biggest ones is Psychology Today. So the ones that I spoke to before, I think are geared more towards people of color, but Psychology Today has a huge national directory as well.
Okay. Yeah, that works. It all works. Whatever you need, we have the resources for you. And I think I would just say, as someone who was on the fence about therapy or thought that he didn't need it, you can't do it on your own. Like, I'm just telling you, you can't do it on your own. If you think you can, God bless you, but I don't think you can do it on your own. And I think you need somebody, a professional, that's able to unpack the things that maybe your friends can't, that maybe your family can't. And I've found things and discovered things about myself that I otherwise would have never discovered. And I think it's changed my life. So that's my testimony to seeing a therapist. I've never seen a psychologist before, but I feel like it would be equal, if not better. So definitely check those resources out. So Dr. Alicia, we're getting into the good part of the show. So you've been in the good part the whole time, but we're getting into you. And we've got a lot of actionable things, got a lot of great tips from you. But this part of the show, this is where we connect you to the listeners, where they can find those type of stuff within you that they can apply to themselves or throughout the course of this conversation. So this is the skills challenge. So I want you to tell me, what do you think are some transferable skills that you have as a psychologist that anybody can use to apply to themselves?
Ooh, transferable skills. I would say, as a psychologist, this is something that I encourage lots of people to do. I put myself in other people's shoes.
Empathy.
So, empathy. I think a lot of people operate on sympathy, like, oh, poor you, couldn't be me, or things like that. But sometimes I find myself even at odds with people. So I'm like, well, I kind of understand why they did that. Like, I see where they're coming from, and people are like, no, be on my side. However, I think a little bit of empathy goes a long way. And also being slow to judge. So I think, I know that therapists are meant to be non-judgmental and kind of accepting of their clients at all times. So instead of me being quick to judge and kind of speak up, I use that even in my personal life to be like, okay, let me hear. And here's what I think.
All right. So we're naturally judgmental as humans. It's our first inclination to be that. So what have you been able to do to quell that inherent judgmental feeling within you?
I think so. We naturally categorize. I think what we do as lay people, I'll put it, is that then put it only in bad or good, right? So I think you're better off categorizing and being like, oh, this is a thing. I'm an outside observer. I don't feel good or bad about it. Like, there's usually a third box. There's good, bad, and there's in between. Like, people are not all bad, not all good. We're a little bit of both. So just remembering, like, this, not to speak in extremes, really.
It's a spectrum. That sounds very stoic of you. Look at it, not attach of an emotion to it, and just see it as what it is, and then go from there, right? All right, cool. What do you think is the biggest professional misconception about your field?
Oh, wow. The biggest.
Or one. We don't have to go to extremes. So what?
I know, because my mind was like, there's so many. The biggest misconception is that we give advice, meaning, and here's what I'll say, meaning we listen and then we're like, well, what I would do, or like, this is what you need to do. More likely, I'm saying, like, well, what do you think? What do you want to do? okay, you told me that situation, and what do you think about it? Because I do believe that my client has the answer, and I want the answer that they want, what's best for them, not like what I would do.
Right.
Most people are just like, you just listen and give advice. And I'm like, no, that's a lot of school and a lot of student debt to be giving out advice.
I hear that. So how do you, I guess it would be through your training, I'm guessing whatever, but you don't give advice, but you may hear something where you're like, that ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, I guess, what, how do you get somebody to a point where they see what you see,
Mm-hmm.
or they see what they need to see within themselves to come to their realization?
I will say that outside of like dangerous situations, I will try the backdoor approach of like, and how is that working for you? How is that in line with your goals? So if your goal is to be successful and you're calling out of work every week, like, help me understand. And if the person's like, I'm just going to keep calling out, then I'm like, all right, do you then?
Mm,
But at least I've sort of shown you like these two things aren't matching up.
mm-hmm.
And I can be here to help support you in getting them to match, but that's still your decision.
Right. It's almost like you don't want to give the leading questions so that they come to the conclusion that you might think they should, or they may think that you think that they should. So,
Right. Right. There's a lot of like trying to be like, so what should I do? And I'm like, what would you like to do?
yeah, I've definitely had that back and forth with my therapist. Like, yo, all right, so you heard all of this. Like, I get it. What's up? Like, you my friend now. Like, what's up? I'm not
Right.
going, you know what I mean? But she's like, well, what do you think? I think you're on the path, but and then it's like this, and I'm like, all right, I'll work on it. I'm
Right.
fed up, but
Like,
it's the process.
like I'll validate, but I definitely don't want to be the one to be like, boom, do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I think about it as a therapist, you are in a position of power, and it is not your right to assert that power or abuse it. I'm walking with you. I'm not telling you what to do.
Right. That's a fact. I appreciate that, and I think that helps to like dispel a lot of the misconceptions that you may have. So now we're getting into the big pass the message part of the show. So I want to hear a story about a time where somebody shared information with you that either helped change your perspective, change your life, or something that you carry with you to this day, and that is something that you would impart on others.
Okay. So there was something popped immediately to my mind, so I feel good about that. There was an older person. I was talking to them about making a decision, and I was just like, I don't know, like this might take me a long time. I'm not sure. And the person like just looked at me dead in the eye and was like, time is gonna pass regardless. Are you going to do it? Or 5 years from now, will you be looking back like, man, I wish I had done that? And I was like, you are so right. That doesn't mean that I haven't felt afraid or I haven't wavered on decisions or struggled around decisions. But I think the idea is if my biggest deterrent is time or effort or energy, the reality is that unless I intend on, God forbid, passing away, I'm going to be further down the line at some point. And will I feel better about, a phrase I use a lot is future self thanks you.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with folding the laundry, and I'm like, I don't feel like doing this right now, but I'm like, but no, future self will thank me if I do it now.
That's real. And when you put things in the concept of time and a finite time, it really impacts you because you think about how much we procrastinate, how much we put things off until later, how much we let fear dictate whether or not we want to do something because we'd rather not do it than fail.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, the worst that could happen is that you fail. And it's not really the worst thing because you learn from every failure and you're better from it the next day. So I think that quote about time is real, and it's something that I feel it's not a how would I say it? It ain't easy to get over that. But
No.
once you do, it's like the world is yours.
Yeah. And every time you do something, now you have more evidence like I can do hard things because I've done them before.
That's real. That's 100% real. Okay. So another big thing that's been prevalent in our society as of late has been the idea of self-care, taking care of yourself in all areas, right? So for me, I break it down into three different parts, like the physical, your body, your spirit, and your mind, and
Mhm.
your soul, right? So for you, how do you take care of yourself in terms of those three aspects? Let's talk about body first.
Physical, so that really involves like moving around for me. I noticed that there's a big difference in my mood and my life if I move around, and that could just be taking a walk around the block. I'm not like CrossFit type of person. I've done it. I threw up at CrossFit,
Oh
and I was
man.
like,
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. We've all thrown up during a workout.
I definitely like went threw up and came back like, all right, and they were
Mm-hmm.
like, where'd you go? And I was like, don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
it. So
Hey.
moving around, um, and I'm like a big fan of the bubble bath.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my thing. And what was your other one? Emotional
Yeah,
self care.
I'll carry it through it. So mentally, so like, do you have a therapist? Do you have a psychologist?
Yep, sure do. So I definitely hit her up when like the Rona first hit, and I was like, "Are you doing telehealth?" And she was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then like 2 weeks later, I was like, "So we can't go outside. Like, can I get this telehealth session popping?" So so yes, definitely seeing my own therapist, spending time like connecting with my friends and my family. Um, Also, all the tips that I gave earlier, like I've also tried them and
Mm-hmm.
been using them. And admitting and acknowledging that I can feel stressed out about this too. Like not try to compartmentalize and say like, oh, I'm a psychologist, so like none of this is stressing me out. I'm doing great. Like, no, I get stressed out too.
Right, exactly. And it's I always wonder that with the therapist and the psychologist. It's almost like who guards the guardians, right? It's like you guys are on the front lines. It's like who's guarding you. So it's good to hear that, I would almost think if our therapist said they didn't have a therapist, I'd kind of look at them like,
Yeah,
make that make sense for me a little bit. But I also understand there's other issues.
yeah. I would hope that they've at least gone in general. I think it's like one of those things that you don't fully understand the depth of your profession unless you've been on the other side of the chair, and then you're
Mm.
like, oh wow, like you feel just as defensive sometimes, or you struggle with like, what do I want to tell them? What do I not want to say? It's very humbling and like great experience in my opinion.
Do y'all talk about work?
I personally do not.
Mm.
Maybe some other, I don't know, maybe some other people do, but I'm like, this is my hour. I'm talking about myself.
Right. I mean, well, legally and all that, I know you can't, but it's like if work is stressing you out and she know you a psychologist, it's kind of like, yeah, work. It's like, yeah, all these sessions. It's like this is I feel the burden. It's like, okay. It's like so.
You probably just like, I'm really overwhelmed, by this thing I heard. Maybe that's probably
You got to have like a multi-level conversation in
yeah,
order to, yeah,
yeah.
that must be, yeah, I get that must be tough, but that's part of the techniques. It's like,
Mhm.
you know what they're going to do. That's one of the things where you're automatically in their shoes because y'all do the same thing. So that's very intriguing, yo.
Yeah. And
So,
some people have that specialty. Like, I have a colleague who her tagline is like the therapist of therapists.
I mean, you want that stress on your life, more power to you, right? But yeah, and then in terms of the soul, like whether it's spirit, it could be religion, it could be meditation, it could be whatever. Like, how do you take care of yourself with that?
I would say I'm actually trying to improve that.
Mm.
So I would say things like devotionals and even like mindfulness meditation. So I'm not always the best at it, but I realize it's a skill of like being able to center and to just calm down and like not focus on something has been really, really useful for me. I started practicing that before a child came into my life. So I was like, I'm gonna need this. And so it's been a good thing.
Yeah, mindfulness meditation is the wave. I got on that because I needed to improve my mindfulness. I needed to improve my awareness because it was affecting parts of my life where I was just like, yeah, you can't coast on thinking that you're aware and you actually ain't. So, then once you go into the rabbit hole of Zen Buddhism and all of that, then it's like you like, oh, I'm breathing wrong. I'm doing this wrong. I got like the state of mind that you got to be in to just be like in a state of like equanimity is like, it's different. It's just real different. It's interesting to learn about and interesting to practice. And these are like thousands-year-old practices. So if they still around, that must mean something working, right?
Mhm.
All right. So, those are some great tips. Like you really bodying this right now, Dr. Alicia. So
You have to come out with a bang. It's the first show.
that is true. That is true. We ain't coming out with no duds. You know what I'm saying? Like, critique if you must, but this is some good stuff right here. So finally, this is my mess around section. Leave with a little bit of levity before we're done with the show. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions to fill in a blank. So whatever comes to mind, and we discuss it. Just like one of your sessions, we don't judge here. So whatever you say is whatever you say, right? So first one. The first thing I want to do when all of this is over and I'm safe is blank.
Do a day party.
Oh, you trying to be around people? All right. You tell me how it is.
I mean, you said safe.
A socially distant day party?
No, but you said it's safe. So in my mind, like,
this is over. All right, you know what? Let me take out the safe part. Just like when we can go back outside.
Oh.
It might still be like this. So if we can, so you want to do a day party when it's all safe. So now when it's like, yo, the stay at home, whatever is lifted or whatever, what would you want to do?
Ooh, child. Oh no.
You know what? I think I'm gonna keep this segment to just safe because I told them, I'm like, yo, I'm treating outside like an iOS update.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait for y'all to update, and after the first 2 weeks, y'all go outside and then y'all let me know how it is, and then I might dip my toe in. But
I jumped into the day party, so I was like, that means I believe it's safe. But
listen,
after this is over, I'm gonna be online watching. Yeah.
you heard? I'm gonna be like, yo, who all there? Guess who ain't there? I ain't there. Word up. The one item I'm most thankful to have right now is blank.
The internet. Does that count?
It better. It better. You pay that bill, it better count.
The internet, it has helped me with my profession, with like what we're doing. And so I like to consume the news online. I can't watch. It's too much.
Yeah.
So I like to read an article and be like, oh, okay, that's good to know. That's it.
Yeah.
And I need the memes to carry me through, like all these memes and videos. And come on, Teddy Riley.
Oh man, Uncle Teddy. Like, yo, I said it on Twitter before. It's like old black men versus technology is one of the greatest rivalries in the history of this world. Listen, that was comedy, but we needed that. We needed that as a culture. We needed that as a people.
Internet,
Yeah, I hear that. I'm right there with you. If you don't listen to blank music, then we can't be friends.
Ooh, trap music.
Oh, word? Who are we talking about right now? If it's one track you would play right now, who's that? Like, what's your go-to?
So, I don't have one.
Okay, but you just like the genre.
Yes, I definitely feel like if I put it on and the person next to me in the car was like, "What's this?" I'll be like, "Wow."
But I mean, not to be judgmental, but if you can't tell me what right now, how do you know what it is? Because of the beat?
No. Well, here's the thing. Yes, and I was like, I just couldn't feel like I had a good song that did justice.
All right. So, all right, I'll just name artists. Maybe something will come right now because I need an answer. T.I.
Well, that was the first person who came to mind. That was the first person who came to mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the person.
So T.I. is the originator. So I ain't mad at that. I ain't mad at that at all. I trap music has got me through many a workout. So I ain't mad at that at all. Are you doing more reading or watching TV as of now?
I'm reading on my phone. I was not really a huge TV watcher. Like I watch fluff TV, if that makes sense. Like I watch reality TV.
Yeah, I was about to say. I know exactly what you mean. Because I'm just thinking about this next question. So I'll say whether it's if you haven't seen or read blank, you need to see or read blank ASAP. Trust me. One book or one TV recommendation you have?
TV. I'm thoroughly entertained by Real Housewives,
All of them?
all genres, because I'm like, I'm not really, not really. It's so cringeworthy. Like, I love seeing things where people argue over miscommunication, which is really like the antithesis of what I do.
Right.
Like look, I'm like, y'all really arguing about this? That's not what she said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because it's like people listening and reading comprehension. Sometimes it's like, yo,
Mhm.
is that what you're reading? You're putting your own emotions into what I said. What I said wasn't what you said.
Yeah, and
You,
I think that's why I enjoy it. So I'm like, that's not what happened. Now let me see what
Mhm.
happened.
Okay, and finally, you wouldn't believe you wouldn't believe me if I told you this. Well, let me say that. You wouldn't believe if I told you this about me, but blank.
I am, well, you might believe it because I'm pretty relaxed with you, but people sometimes don't believe that I'm like very much a clown. Like
Mm.
not serious at all.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a joke. Like I'm the friend that people are like, get serious. And I'm like, all right.
Well, you need that dichotomy. You in a very serious profession, so I mean, I could tell. Like, you could tell when somebody says certain things. You're like, oh, you be cutting up. You got jokes. I know you got jokes.
I crack jokes all day, text jokes, and I'm very sarcastic.
Yeah, I know that. I know that. That sounds like you. That sounds like you. So, all right, you've made it through. Time
Yay.
has flown, and you've made it through. So, at the end, this outset, tell me, plug yourself, whatever you got going on. Let the people know where they can find you, etc., etc.
Well, I am one of the people who is in between the idea of like, do I use COVID to propel myself or am I chilling? So I will say you can find me on Instagram. I have been posting. I intend to actually post more because I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
My ad name is Help Me Hodge. Actually across all platforms, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Um, I'm always posting, like, not always, but I like to post a lot of Insta stories. I have T-shirts that I'm going to be launching
Okay, merch.
related to Slay Your Anxiety. And I might be one of the people that like comes out of the Rona with a book. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, now I got pressure. I'm like, damn, do I gotta write a book?
Every time mentally, it's like she has telepathy. My daughter. Every time I'm like, you know what? I'm about to sit down, and I like put my hand over the keyboard. She's like, oh nah, nah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, you trying to be productive? No, you did this, so come and handle it, man. All right, well, Dr. Alicia, it's been fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. You're the first guest, and you were the best guest I've had so far on the show.
Right. Give
I
me the
have to say that. I can say that with all honesty and sincerity. You are the best guest I've had on this show. All right.
Thank
Listen,
you.
yes, and thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching. I hope this is the beginning of a great ride and something that you can use and utilize in your everyday life, right? And I'll leave you with this. It's a quote from Barry Allen, who many of you may not know, but if you're a nerd, you know this is The Flash. He says, you can't let the threat of losing tomorrow keep you from making the most out of today. And I think that's appropriate for our times and everything right now. And I will say that civilizations don't survive without scribes. A knowledge hoarded is a knowledge doomed to be lost in time. Learn it, share it, and vibrate higher. So until next time, we will see you later.